This episode is sponsored by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Whether you're buying your first home, selling, or making a move, Greg brings integrity, expertise, and heart to every step of the journey. He's not just a realtor, he's a trusted guide who puts your needs first. Call Greg today at 937-477-8975 and let him help you find your next home. And don't forget to tell him the Recovery Couch sent you. Welcome back to the Recovery Couch, everybody. Super excited to have you here this episode where today's guest is someone who holds a very special place in my recovery journey. Not just as a professional, but as a friend, a guide, and a constant source of grace. Ken Garber is a licensed alcohol and drug abuse counselor, LADAC 2, currently serving individuals and families at both Franklin Recovery Center and Cumberland Heights in Nashville. But long before his current titles, Kim was a steady presence in my life when everything felt like it was falling apart. In the early stages of my recovery, when I was still drowning in guilt, shame, and self-doubt, Kim was one of the few people that I trusted enough to tell the truth to. I shared with him my darkest secrets, the stuff I was convinced would make people walk away. But Ken didn't walk away. He leaned in. He loved me through it with no judgment, no shame, just compassion. And I'll never forget this. When I needed to get to my last treatment center, the one that finally stuck, Ken and his wife Janie, personally drove me there. That act of kindness, that moment of support, meant more than I could try to put into words, because that was a turning point for me. Ken has spent years helping people like me find hope, healing, and freedom. And today, I get to sit across from him, not as someone still trying to survive, but as someone living in recovery and grateful beyond words. Ken, welcome to the Recovery Couch. It means the world to me to have you here, brother.
Thank you, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Yeah.
Tell me, what sparked your heart to get into the world of recovery, which, Ken, let's be honest, it can be heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, I actually started off as a volunteer, and this was over 20 years ago in Santa Cruz. I had a good friend. She was the clinical director, and she invited me to come. I was actually in between jobs. I had a chronic back injury. And California had this vocational rehab program, and they were willing to pay some money to get me rehabbed into maybe another line of work. And I loved teaching. So I was just investigating some things, and obviously there wasn't really a lot of money for this type of program, but I decided that if I were to go to school, but maybe do like online. I don't know. I was just looking for I was looking for a way to kind of get into this field because I absolutely loved it. Just the volunteer part. You talk about spark. I had spark. I lit up with the clients. Long story short, we were able to work out a way to. I told the state of California, look, I'll do a 9-month online program. I'll get it done in 6 months, and it won't cost you as much as you think. I love, it's like there's always ideas. There's always ways around things, and that because they refused at first, but then when I told them that, they said, okay, we'll do it. And you know what? I couldn't get that done in 6 months. I wasn't smart enough. It took me. I had. It took me 3 months just to get my first report in because I did the first semester online. And I was I don't know what words to use. I was scared. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be good. But anyway, 3 months later, I got my first report in, and then it came back graded. And I said to Janie, if this is like a D or a fail, I'm quitting. And I got an A+. It's like, okay. You know what? Maybe I was meant for this. And then I kept going and completed. But Brandon, you're right. I got to tell you, some of the most pushback. I mean, anything from false accusations, to just whatever sometimes people could throw at you, they could throw at you. Because here's the deal. Depending on the agency you work for, they may have come off the streets, they may have come out of prison, they might have come from jail or whatever. And so they'll test you, they'll push you, but I got to tell you, it's just you just keep going, and here we are 20 plus years later, and absolutely just love this field, and I love the people.
Yeah, so two questions there. First one, you talk about the spark. So you get in front of the people, you notice this spark. Like I'm hearing that like you came alive, and is that a point in time where you were like, "This is for me"? For I don't know why, but for some reason I know this is where I'm supposed to be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so here's what's interesting. A lot of the clients, there's definitely abuse in their background. There's trauma in their background. There's pain in their background, and and it's like they're holding up a mirror in a sense. And I see this stuff in my childhood, and sometimes the trauma, the pain, um, whatever we were taught that was negative, is it possible we heal from that? That could be where we're to contribute to this world. And from my pain to my platform, and in between the pain and the platform is processing the pain, of course. So it was like, this is really interesting. These people are hurting. I know what that feels like. And so you, this is where community is so huge as we move forward. We can't do this without community. And I had that. I had community support within my church. I had community support within my colleagues. I had community support within my educators. And you have to have that. So this is, and you know, the field, it evolves over time. I mean, obviously, I don't have a caseload right now. In a sense, I kind of do. I do work for Williamson County Veteran Treatment Court, or they hire me. I'm on contract with Life Recovery Solutions, which is what Janie and I put together. So it's not a nonprofit. It's not like the 501c3. It's a C corporation, which allows us to have different angles for those caught up in addiction, veterans, single moms. So we are able to really think through more things that we can engage in that we absolutely love. The field of recovery expands far beyond substance use. And I could say like AA, I call AA, could be like anything addiction, it could be approval addiction, just things like that. And I just love helping and encouraging and helping people see just maybe on the other side of your fear and trauma could be your greatest contribution. And I want to come alongside them and see where there might be a fit there.
So, Life Recovery Solutions, would you describe that work as a newer approach, like a thinking outside of the box approach to how we can help people in recovery?
So yeah, Life Recovery Solutions is really our C corporation we put together probably less than a year ago. We as you know, when we were in Warren County, Ohio, when we had the 501c3, it's that nonprofit was specifically for veterans. So we were looking for other angles to be able to help those that are in addiction, but also veterans. I do work with the Veteran Treatment Court here in Williamson County. I do work with Franklin Recovery Center. They actually hire me to to help with treatment planning, intensive outpatient program. I do that as well. And as you mentioned earlier, I do the family education program. So Cumberland Heights hired me to do the virtual family education program. So now I also work with families of those that are caught up in active addiction as well. So we do use Life Recovery Solutions as as a way of being able to reach out to more than just one population.
And since the time I've known you and Janie, Ken, I've known that you started this process. Was that in California when you started getting into your foot in the recovery door?
Yeah, 2004. Yes.
2004 in California. Since then, you've been, like you mentioned, the Warren County Court in Warren County, Ohio. Now you're currently in Nashville, Tennessee, or Franklin. Is it Franklin, Tennessee?
Yep. Yeah.
And so this is kind of like you've been doing this on a national level. What do you think that these court systems, these recovery treatment centers see in you that make them want to bring you in as a contractor?
That's a good point. Uh, well, I like to think that I'm a little unique, and I like I like to bring in um, my thoughts, my ideas, my concepts, the way I work with individuals. And I remember when Janie and I did a short presentation in front of the treatment team with Warren County, the Warren County treatment team, and and I'll never forget. Judge Teep invited Janie and I to come to court. He wanted us to meet a couple of people. Lo and behold, we were honored to be introduced to you. And yeah, and it's just funny how you know. By the way, I'm not gonna say that I don't have anxiety. I think there's some things that I will probably have to deal with for the rest of my life from my own childhood traumas. But here's my thing about anxiety. My rule number one is just show up. Just show up. And you don't have to make a big deal of it. Just show up and be present and see what happens. And but anyway, I do like to think that my approach is unique, and I think I did an actual object lesson. I did a little bit of an idea of how I tailor make treatment plans for clients, and so I think that's important too, because too often we can become cookie cutter. And not only do I love being involved with clients, I also like helping to train and educate new counselors in the field because I want them to be aware of maybe a lot of the things that I've been through, but why is it important, or how am I still in this field after 20 plus years? Well, take self-care for example. We've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to what who and what do we put first, and we got to take care of us, and that's why too that community aspect is huge because we're gonna take our hits, but I'm also I I just I just love what I mean I think what do they love? What do people need in treatment that's outside of the scope of the everyday stuff that they're going to get? And of course, friendly, sense of humor, great lessons. Like I can pull up a video clip on from a movie on emotional regulation, conflict resolution, and not only did they get the enjoyment of watching a part of a movie, but it's like that is pretty cool. I never saw it that way before, and I think that's what I want people to remember when they hear something on a recovery related issue is that I hadn't seen it that way before, and I want that's what I want to hear. I want that's what I want to give out is that it's unique and it's me. That's what I Brandon, I used to be so afraid to step outside of the box because part of my childhood was a lot of accusation. And I had a nervous breakdown at 13 and was isolated for healing. It was just the craziest time. And so when you're belittled, that's a crazy thing too. And it's sadly it happens, that kind of stuff. And so you don't want to be accused, and that was the hardest thing being in this field at the beginning, is when there's stuff that people are saying about you behind your back. So I wouldn't step out of the box. I wouldn't do anything risky. I wouldn't do anything creatively. I was like, hey, if someone has a problem with it, well, I stayed to the letter of the law. But you know what? I don't do that anymore. I take the risk of people not liking my material. And yet some do. They love it. And then some, it may not have been fitting, but that's okay. I've learned how to just step out of that, my comfort zone, get out of that box, and be the way I was made to be. And I want to change lives.
Yeah, I would say that you're right on par. I would the two words that come to mind on why, if somebody wanted me or asked me like why is Ken Garber good at what he does, I would say he cares. He genuinely cares. He genuinely loves people. And two, he's authentic. And I learned a big lesson on authenticity when you took me to the Joseph House. It was one of the more moving treatments. That was the first time I was in a treatment center where I was moved to change. Like it was just there. They trusted you. It wasn't like you're talking about like where it was to the dot your T's and cross your I's. It was a little bit outside of the box. We'll give you some freedom. Just don't make us reel you in. And I needed that at that point in time. And I remember going into an AA meeting while I was down there, and I would say for the first few weeks, when it was my turn to speak in AA, hey, my name's Brandon. I'm a drug addict, and I have some childhood traumas that led me to, and I would be very vague. Well, one day I'm like, you know what? I got up in front of a room full of manly, burly veterans, and I'm like, I have childhood sexual trauma, and it sounds like so like celebration worthy as I'm saying it now, but like the anxiety inside of me before I said that, Ken, was like it was scary. And there was somebody in the room that was like his exact words were like, now we're getting somewhere. I didn't expect it to be received that way. But when I showed up as my authentic self, it got received as brave and courageous. And when I was sitting there for the first 2 weeks trying to come up with the most, formulated, thought provoking type of, hey, my name is Brandon, I'm an addict type of response, nobody was receiving that. And that was a huge lesson for me in my journey. And that's what I think is one of the biggest things that why people will receive you. You do think outside of the box. You show up as Ken Garber. You don't show up as, whoever your mentor was, or you show up as Ken Garber. And I truly believe that authenticity, like truly authentic, there's times I'm trying to be authentic and I'm not. There's times I'm just authentic. And I think authenticity is the most attractive quality. I think most people are so attracted to it because it's scarce. It's so rare. It's tough. It's not easy. And I love that about you. And I think that I would say that's probably why Judge Teep, Franklin Recovery Center, Cumberland Heights, whoever you're working with, I would say that that's one of the main reasons why people like to bring Ken Garber aboard. That's why I wanted to have you on this podcast. You're authentically you.
Thanks,
I love
Brandon.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you inviting me to this podcast, as I said before, this is the first time I've been on any kind of social media outlet. It's like, and it's funny. Um, it's what's funny is that I'm wondering that you've been an inspiration, and I definitely want to give this social media part a try, because that, like, the Macedonia call, which is kind of funny. I kind of think there's somebody in Alabama. This is crazy. I always say this. This is my thing. Somebody in Alabama needs to hear something from me. That's it. It's just I I may never travel to Alabama. I've never been there, but they may pick up on something from the social media outlet. And I watch you, and you have no idea. Because just because of our personal relationship, I there was a quote, not sure where it came from or if I'm even quoting it right. It just said, if you want something you've never had before, then try to do something you've never done before. And sometimes we have to get across that wall of fear. It's like, okay, this side is fear, but on the other side is something pretty revolutionary. Brandon, you played baseball, didn't you?
Yeah, so did you. Yeah, I did.
We talked a little bit about just the sports stuff, but when I was in high school and I'm a junior, and I played baseball 2 years of college, but I'll never forget, I never did a head first slide up until my junior year of high school when my friend Dave, he did a head first slide. I go, dude, what was that like? Because he slid into the bag like Pete Rose, and it was like he said, when you do that, you'll never go back. And it was just something that always comes back to me. That first time is always the most scariest. And it's like, because I've never done that before. And the future it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable, but also when you step out of your comfort zone and you move into your, as you said, authenticity, your authentic self, people can also rise up and be unkind. We've all experienced unkind people. But that's just something that we have to work through. We have to just keep going. Thank you for doing this and for inviting me on.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for the encouragement. It's so funny what you just said. I was exercising at Stubbs Park here in Centerville earlier today, and I had this kind of little moment of clarity where I was thinking about how this a whole authenticity, authentic conversation. And typically, Ken, like when my mind goes crazy before a podcast and there's so many things I want to get out, like I typically have to kind of brain dump it and be like, this has got to be spirit led. Just let it come from straight from the heart. Sometimes the conversation goes the way you want it to. Sometimes it don't, and you don't get to say like the things that you feel like are, nuggets. So thank you for giving me the opportunity because this felt like a nugget to me when I was thinking about it earlier, and it was, uh, you know, people I think are attracted to authenticity. But like you're saying, when you start operating out of your authentic self and you're garnering more attention, there's going to be generally be a little bit more hate, right? And I was comparing that to when like I was in active addiction or in my dark days, right? Those same people who might be hating on like your success were you might have even been pulling for you when you were in active addiction, right? But now that you're achieving and now that you have you've came into your own authentically, there's going to be a little bit of discouraging words or different types of things that might be said about you. And how do you navigate that? How have you navigated that throughout like your professional career? I know earlier in this conversation you talked about there were people in that you were pouring into that uh, were saying, what was the word you used, that were lying about saying things behind your back. How do you deal with
False,
that?
false
Right?
accusations.
False
Yeah,
accusations.
speaking behind your back. They thought it was all funny when new people would come in and they would talk about the different counselors or whatever. Um, well, yeah, because I remember some of the most hurtful moments. Thank goodness our clinical director, Carla, she to this very day, her and her husband are they're like our best friends. When you think of best friends with like it's like the top five, and they're amazing. And I could always go to her for any kind of therapy or whatever you would call it regarding this field because she's been through a lot of it. But again, it's you can't isolate because isolation is going to affect your independence, which will also affect your identity. And we were made for something bigger and better. But we've got to have that, we've got to get out of just letting it stay inside. We've got to talk it through with people who know us, people who know the truth about us, people who know they may see parts of us and the direction we need to go that we don't even see ourselves, but they can speak that into our lives. And because as you said too, we're gonna have the whether they be haters or whatever you want to call them. It's like we also got to be able to figure out, okay, where should our focus be, and continue to stay close to the ones who know us and believe in us and accept us, and yeah, because they're authentic as well, and they bring out the best in us. I'm going to start writing names, Brandon, under the letters AI, and I'm going to put you under AI. It's not artificial, man. It is authentic intelligence. So, because you're right, not that we can't get some good information from AI, but we've got to remember, there's something within us that we've got we, we're always growing, and we're always learning. I'm more of a learner today than I've ever been before. My love for learning is just over the top. But the thing is, Brandon, I feel like I'm a hoarder of ideas, and I can't do that. I think that's depression. And when you think of the word depress, when you get in your car and go, you are depressing the pedal. So I have to ask myself, what's pressing on me? What is weighing on me? Because depressed means to be burdened or to be made heavy. And a lot of times it's not a chemical imbalance. It's something that I might be putting off. Something's pressing on me. It's weighing on me. And it might be a responsibility that I have actually not doing. And so I want to be responsible with the gifts God has given me and to keep putting it out there. So when I see you, I feel like that's going to be a next level for me. Now, here's the deal. If I look at social media as a business, it really messes with my head. And I just felt like that little whisper said, how about a hobby? How about an activity? How about you just thinking that maybe one person's going to get so much out of that? And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, I can do that. That's that feels doable. So, going back to self-care, activities, hobbies, taking care of ourselves during those hard and pressing times. It's not uncommon that I see a colleague crying or something because it gets difficult, and I shouldn't be laughing. But I've been there, done that many times, and so I feel like too I'm there for the newcomer who's coming into this field too.
You were there for me. I remember one time, I think we were at Panera or something, and you were asking me, you're like, hey, what do you like to do? And I'm like, I like
Yep.
to go to the gym. To be honest, like I
Yep.
just like to get in that little zone and go like sweat it out. And you're like,
I
then go
remember.
to the gym. Remember that? And
Yep.
I didn't do it, right? Because the message I was getting, from like the church buildings and stuff were, be selfless and, and then I'm going into, recovery type meetings and they're saying this is a selfish program. That may sound stupid to anybody listening, but to me, that was one of the most conflicting things in the world. So I would go home and I would be full of, this sometimes depression, like you're talking about, sometimes anxiety, thinking I need to be handling this other stuff, but I'm just going to try to be here for the wife and the kids. And it was driving me into the ground. And I think you were wise enough at the time to know that. And that's what you were trying to tell me was, Brandon, take care of you. You're nothing to nobody unless you're taking care of yourself. And if exercise is something that helps you take care of yourself, then that's a beautiful thing because that's going to help you physically and mentally, and which will help you emotionally and probably even spiritually. And I've thought about that many times because that's something I do today. But I didn't put that into practice when you were encouraging me to do that. And I think that's relative to exactly what you were just talking about. Is you got to take care of yourself. And at this point in my recovery journey, Ken, I get it. It is you. I hate the word selfish, but I get what they're saying now, right? Like if self care is that important to you, then get up and do it. At a time where like you can have that alone time, but you're going to have to prioritize your disciplines in order for you to be healthy enough to absorb, the amount of other people's problems that you're going to absorb in a field like this.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the selfish part is, yes, number one, put that like, yeah, take care of you first, get filled up so we can be of benefit, of service to others. It's like when you're on the plane. I asked three guys one night. I said, "Okay, you're on an airplane, and the oxygen is low in the cabin, and and you got your kids with you, and all the masks come down. The oxygen mask, right? And so I said, so what do? You got kids, and you got you, and they all said, "Oh, I'm going to put the masks on my kids first." But guess what? We all know, well, we know if we've been on a plane, we know that's wrong. They say, put the mask on you first and then assist the kids. But guess what? All three of those guys never been on a plane.
That's like a great punchline to a good joke, man.
So they never, and so I get it. I would have done the same thing, but they teach us sometimes the lessons don't make sense, right?
Yeah,
And that's
dude.
faith. That's faith. It's like doing something that the brain says, "Are you kidding me? That doesn't make sense." When I did the motorcycle safety course, me and my brothers we did the weekend motorcycle safety course, and there were some elements while we're on our motor. Hey, I'm 50. This is when I was 50 years old. I'd never been on a motorcycle in my life, and the instructor, is telling us how to do like a hairpin turn, how to like come into the turn. Start slow, then pick up your speed, but make sure you turn your head toward the where you want to end up. So what's the goal in mind? And of course, he stood over there at that spot and he goes, "I want to see your eyes locked on me when you're coming into that turn." My brain said, "He's trying to kill you. Don't trust him. You're gonna fall." But you know what? I thought, you know what? He's smarter than me. I don't get it, but I'm going to do it. And it was flawless. And he actually stopped me after the element and he goes, "What was that like for you?" I said, "It was amazing." He goes, "It was perfect." And I thought, wow. So I always say to people, if you want to be a great leader, you got to learn how to follow. I think great leaders know how to be a great follower as well. And we've got to listen to those who have gone before us. And yeah.
Well, and Ken, we're in a field, and I can use myself as an example of where, um, let's be honest, a lot of counselors in the recovery field, a lot of them. There's some that have been in active addiction, but there's a lot of counselors that are encouraging you to be, to trust, and you're like, you ain't even come close to seeing what I've seen, bro. Trust.
You're
You
right.
can't what? Trust what? Anybody ever told me to trust them? You understand what they did to me? That's how we start thinking, right? And
Gosh, good
that's
point.
not an easy thing to do. I've watched countless great-hearted people try to come up with the most clever ways to get me to trust them. And the more that they try to get clever, the less I trust, right? Because I feel like I'm getting hoodwinked, or I feel like and that's why I operate out of authenticity, and I say cuss words and shit because
Yeah.
when people start speaking that way, I start trusting them, and that probably blows a lot of my spiritual mentors away. But I'm like, I mean, all this like extra dialogue, or it makes me feel like you're pulling the wool over my eyes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so I say all that because I know I'm not the only one, right? I mean, I've been in treatment centers where we leave group counseling sessions and I hear what people are saying, and the more intelligent the group counselor tried to get, the less that message was received as we walked back to our dormitory or whatever. You know
Man.
what I mean? It was like, but the more it was just real and raw, the more people would walk. Like it was like they walked away with eyes like that. Like you never, nobody was saying nothing because they were all touched in the heart.
Mm,
And
I love
there's
that.
something to that. There's something to it, not just in the recovery world. I mean, if we go to a social gathering and we see somebody who just can work the room, or those type of people that when they show up, people say like he steals the show, or her smile just lights up the room. It's not necessarily that they know how to work a room or their smile's the greatest thing anybody's ever seen. It's what attracts people is they operate out of an authentic self, which typically comes from they're not anxious in these situations. Everybody else is, and people notice the people aren't. That they can just show up a little less anxious. Their breathing patterns are normal. They're not trying to impress. That's the shit that impresses people. And it's the same with recovery. But it's not just recovery. So if in a group counseling session, when the person standing up in front of that audience is authentic, I don't care what you think, right? Not because I'm trying to be like a hard ass, but like I don't like this is what I'm here to do. Let's check this out. Okay, today we're talking about triggers. I got a couple. As a matter of fact, Billy, you're a trigger to me. Listen, kid, that's funny, ain't it? But they will respond to that. You trigger me sometimes, Billy. There's just something about like he ain't pulling no punches. That not just people in recovery, but everybody loves that, right? Sometimes people toe the line. You've admitted to me I've towed the line with you. Like, hey, sometimes your honesty was just a little almost offensive, Brandon, and
Yeah.
that hurt because I love you, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but there's sometimes where it's like I felt like, hey, if it's this necessary for Warren County Court to push this narrative, right, and they're going to push it to the extreme that they've pushed it, but they don't want to hear me, well, then I'm going to show them how necessary it is for me for them to hear my narrative, because you're pushing me too much. And when my back's on the wall, I'm a fighter. That's what I am. It's what I do. And I'm not saying that like there's plenty. I've been beat up plenty of times, but I go to war. Whether it's verbally and that's not my best quality. But I think even when I do stuff like that, eventually, in the moment, people are like, "Man, he's just, being difficult." That's Brandon. But when they have time to think about it and process it, it gets respected.
Yeah.
It eventually gets respected. And so if you walk into a recovery group counseling session and you tell Joe, "Hey, man, sometimes, dude, the way you disrupt my class triggers me, and I want to go drink a beer." Sometimes that real raw, like I'm telling you straight from my heart. I'm not trying to find no clever. I'm telling you straight up, Joe. It gets on my nerves, dude. Sometimes that shit really resonates with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's so true. The two words that you said over the last minute was the trust factor, and I about it. I knew that the importance of making people feel safe, that they don't have to trust me as they're coming into my groups or whatever. And I think that is so much more powerful than thinking that I am an authority that they can trust. I don't think that goes well. I think it's more important. We want to see their guard come down a little bit, and we can just present, and then we can let them engage, and go from there. Yeah, and it's interesting. So thanks for bringing that up. I think that's such an important part. Which I would say about you, it's interesting as I'm hearing you share, you are a voice needed today in this field. Brandon, I knew all along. I saw the raw, the the unpolished. Yes, I got to experience it. I experienced people getting up from their table. Heck, they hadn't even been there for 5 minutes. But there was something inside that, first of all, words that come to me, you were definitely passionate, but you were very articulate. It didn't matter what came out of your mouth. You were articulate. There's a way about you, how you explain things is I knew it's like, okay, God, you know what's in there. And but it was just getting through that whatever the war you were in. You were in a war, man. You were in a war. And but you know what's interesting about there the life that we have with God is a real love story. Unfortunately, that love story on earth is surrounded by a horrible war. And so it's really being able to know that, to work in it and through it and so forth. But it's I'm just so blessed to see where you're at today, and it is becoming more refined. So yes, I'm so grateful to hear your voice today of such a heart and compassion for people that are trapped, whether it be an active addiction or still trying to figure out their coping skills and stuff like that. And what's interesting about triggers, that used to really hurt me if somebody felt like I triggered them. And this is the difficult part when you're actually working in a residential rehab, when a client can go tell your supervisor, Ken's story triggered me, blah blah blah, and it's almost as if we have to apologize. But I think what's interesting is a better way around it is the trigger is external, but the activation is internal. And I want people to realize whether you adopt a child or whether you're a foster parent or whether you enter into a new field, whatever it might be, that we feel the struggle. And that's the thing. It may not be what's external. It's like, okay, what's being activated inside of me? And I do believe, you were talking about those dark secrets. And I didn't even mention this. I had sexual trauma at the age of 7. And that kind of trauma shuts you up and it shuts you down and it shuts you out. And what's the opposite of that kind of trauma? That's why I always want clients to know, anybody, please, you have a voice here. Because having a voice it's sometimes it's just so foreign to that individual who's been through those types of things. But so the it's the activation that's inside of me. Another way of looking at it is that person pushes my buttons, right? So what's really going on? Because we have adopted and we were foster parents, and I have, and I do now work in the field of recovery. So I am more willing to look at the mirror see the reflection from what's coming from those clients to see, is there anything inside of me that I want to address first? Because then that also it softens the way I can approach them. Uh, I remember when we adopted our son, he was 15, and then at 18 he joined the Marine Corps. Years later, he'll be 40 his next birthday, and he said to me, "Dad, I I bet, Dad, I put you through a lot, didn't I?" And I said, "No, you know what, son? You know what I've learned over all this? I just want to say thank you. You were a gift." I start to look at people as a gift because whatever is going on with them, I mean, whether it be active addiction or whether it be passed on in the foster care system, it's all about survival. Whether it be learning to manipulate as a form of survival, whether it be stealing to get that next high, it's a form of survival. whatever it might be. We do our best to be there for them, but I also want to look at to see what it brought up in me because I'm not finished. There's still a lot inside of me that uh, I want to I just want to keep going. I want to get better. I want to get bigger. I want to get stronger. And I've been married 38 years. And I had a recent revelation as to, I thought, I'm going to do some research. What is it about couples who've been married over 30 years that divorce? Because I want to keep this fresh. I want it to get better. So anyway, I'm just in this phase. I want to of learning, discovery, and then even the risky part of things that just scare the heck out of me.
I love that about you, dude. I love that. So let me see if I can put a bow tie on this real quick. So there was traumas from your life, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if I'm gathering this correctly, it seems like softened your heart and put you in a position to be in a field like this where you're leading recovery groups, where you're doing intensive outpatient, where you have adopted from the foster care system. Because do you, well, let me, don't say, I don't want to say because, let me ask, do you feel like you see a small part of yourself in some of these other broken people that you just want to love?
Yes, accept them. Well, yes, love them, accept them, let them know there's forgiveness available. And then just to be as gentle as possible to figure out what would be the next step for them. I do believe like treatment planning is not from the counselor. I believe treatment planning should always start with the client. What is important to them? Where do we go from here? And then we come alongside, we help, and we may offer, something, along those lines. So yeah, absolutely, that's true.
And then you talked about how important it is to allow the client to put their guard down. What are your ways of doing that? What are some, without getting too clever, without getting like, how do you just show up and in a way that the client is just like, ah, I trust you enough to tell you this or whatever. What are some ways to go about that?
I think, and it's not like I strategically looked or like like it's something that I'm aware of necessarily. Obviously, going back to, well, what's authentic about me that works for me? Um, Obviously, I use other stories, not necessarily mine. I want to use, depending on topics, depending on where a person might have come from, I want to know who is important to them, what's important to them, what might be their values. I might look for people and stories that share those same values. Um, Sometimes it's kind of cool when it comes from somebody else. I might use humor, movie clips, food. It depends on if it were in person. Uh, uh, because that is a fine line to how do you navigate that somebody just might open the door a little bit for you. Because here's an interesting fact: when we had foster daughters, so Christina was 8 when she came to live with us. She was already in 14 homes. We were her 14th home. We learned in the foster care system, doesn't matter how good of a parent you are, they won't trust you. It'll take at least 9 months. Can you imagine? And these are children. Children. Imagine a teenager. Imagine an adult. So, um, and let me just end on that foster piece. So Christina is now 42 years old. And she calls us her bonus parents. She got a hold of us when Facebook came out and found us years and years later. And so her and her husband and 3 kids, uh, we we spent. They came and stayed with us a week for last 4th of July, and then a week for Christmas. And she wants her kids to look at us as bonus grandparents. And guess what? Here's the cherry on the top of this one. So she had trauma, right? She had a lot of trauma as a kid. You know what she does today? She's a trauma therapist for adolescents. She took what was the offense and has made it into her purpose. So she doesn't serve her weakness, she serves her purpose as a trauma therapist. It is like mind blowing.
So I would love to encourage listeners, especially listeners who feel like maybe your past actions have too much guilt or shame attached to them. I would encourage you to listen to what Ken's saying right now and understand that like you can seriously turn your pain into your purpose, and people will not receive it like you think they will. They will see it as courage, they will see it as bravery, and they will admire you, at least for the beginning stages, uh, for being so brave and bold to say, hey, look, I have a heart for this because I've been through it and I want to help people. And not only can you turn that into your purpose, but your purpose can be rewarding in not just monetary ways. It can be rewarding spiritually and emotionally as well. So let's land a plane here. We're talking about the rewards of emotionally and spiritually that come with being in recovery and loving people in recovery. But there's also another side of the scale. So you got like, hey, these are the victories, man. But there's also like some serious losses. How do you navigate that? And what are some of the most difficult losses and some of the most awesome victories that you've had in your journey as a licensed alcohol chemical dependency counselor?
Ooh, that's a loaded. Those are loaded questions. Yeah, there's going to be loss. There's going to be victories, of course. I stay close to the victories, of course, and losses are. I don't know. I think they can be. We're not going to reach every client. We're not going to see success at every encounter, and so I mean, I'm just trying to think of, yeah, just being in this field. It's gonna have its setbacks. I'm trying to think of maybe some other words for losses. So there'll be some setbacks. There's going to be individuals that um, aren't going to win this battle uh, that they're in, but we have seen many that do. And you know, it's interesting, Brandon. I'm still in touch with clients that I've known 20 years ago. And I'll tell you, okay, I got a victory for you. So Hector was my client in early 2000s, and his way of survival to get food would be dumpster diving. And he had a heroin addiction. So let me just, long story short, today, so in 2019, he and I were colleagues and at a high-end residential treatment just north of Santa Cruz, California. You know what I learned? I learned that the year before, and I wasn't working there, he was Employee of the Year. And he had to do the hard work. You know, he would intern, he would go to school, he had setbacks, go back to interning. He just kept working, kept doing the hard stuff. And then Employee of the Year, he's still there today. And he's just phenomenal, phenomenal. So it's people like that that I've known for years that they own their own businesses, they're doing well. It's inside of them. The fire is inside of them, and it's how do we get that out? It's inside of all of us. It's not out there somewhere. You know, there was a study on creative genius. George Lands is one of the most famous of assessments for creative genius. This is and I've looked at others too, and they're similar. Kids from 0 to 5 can score as high as 98% creative genius, but adults they found as low as 2% because of the pressures of life, etc. But guess what? That creative genius, it didn't like leave them. It didn't go anywhere. It's just buried. It's still within them. And I like what Pablo Picasso said. He goes, you know, when we're young, like maybe in middle school or whatever, we want to be adults so bad. I want to be an adult. And then he goes, but then when we're adults and we get into like just the hectic ways of life, we want that youth back. And I get it. I get it. And it's how do we navigate getting our song back, fighting, or as That one song says, hard fought, hallelujah. We got to fight for it. We got to fight for it. But we do it together. We do it in community. So there's a lot of victories in this field, and that's why I'm still in it. And I absolutely love it. And I'm looking for ways to like, how do I expand it? I love what I do now. That's the nice thing about my age and longevity in this field. You get to start to pick a little bit more of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So because when you first come into this field, no, you don't pick and choose. It's like but that's all part of the stages of growth. So, and keep taking care of yourself. What brings you joy? What brings you fun? Whether it be the company we keep and the things we watch and fun stuff to hear, and of course my spiritual life, my faith walk with God is I tell you, I cannot lose that for anything. And um, hey, I'll share one thing, Brandon. This is a new little concept that I absolutely love. There's a lot more to it, how it all began. But before we did our journey to France, as you know, we lived in France for a couple of years. There's a sentence called "Ne vous inquiétez pas," and it means "do not worry." But there's a word in there, and it's "inquiète," and "inquiète" means worried. But if you look at that word together and you separate the N and the Q, it's in quiet, in quiet. We've got to learn to still our heart. And that's been a big, big deal for me. I've got to stop and just take time to let go of worries and to let go of things and just be still. Because I think worry will steal it. Anxiety can steal it. But like Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. But I don't know if you have a keyboard in front of you, Brandon. I have a keyboard in front of me, and the biggest, most widest, longest key is the space bar key because it's the key that's most used of all the keys. And I think whatever we use the most, or whatever we think the most, whatever we focus on the most, grows the most. Where we focus is what will expand. And so we have an internal space bar key and we need to use it. It's inside of us. It allows us to separate ourselves from a momentary crisis or some discouragement or whatever it might be. And just take a moment to pause, get a pen and paper, write out anything that might show a new direction. I do believe that I think in our greatest discouragement, we can maybe sense that a new direction could be coming, but we got to pay attention to what might be the message inside of the discouragement, inside of a potential crisis, or whatever we're going through. So that's healing for me. So I got to always look internal and stop, pause, reflect, pray, listen, and so use that internal space bar key. Focus on being still and quiet and hearing, listening.
Yeah, from where I come from, man, we have this little way that we deal with, like, if it doesn't serve you, F it.
Yeah.
F it, man. Forget about it. And if it ain't serving you, and to be completely honest, all jokes aside, um, it's a valuable tool. There's so many things that I carried into active addiction that I didn't know how to cope with, that were not serving me, that I just didn't have that ability to say F it. It was more like, it's bottled down there deep, and I'm gonna carry this, and I'm gonna use it for hate. I'm gonna use it for fuel to fight. I'm gonna use it for it's fuel.
Yeah.
And so, you had a much more eloquent way of putting it. But if it's not serving me and it's trying to take away that space bar or my peace, um, uh,
Yeah.
when I'm trying to be quiet, then sometimes my internal dialogue just goes to F it, bro.
Yeah.
It ain't serving
Yeah.
me. And,
I
and
like.
and then I start a positive dialogue, positive self talk, or prayer. Prayer is a big thing for me. Silent prayer. I used to pray out loud, but I'm so paranoid. I thought people could hear it.
You know, I know. You know what, Brandon? I think forever we'll have inner struggles. There's just these inner struggles, and it's like, okay, but this time I don't bury them. I acknowledge them. It's like, okay, I have, me too. I don't really like public appearances. But by the way, though, I do find presenting. I love presenting. I love designing and creating my workshops, which is so opposite of what the traumas did to me. They shut me up, but now I love speaking and I love teaching and I love being able to shape things in such a way that just a different concept or another way of looking at things. So,
Well, you bring joy, and as long as I've known you, whether you're teaching a lesson plan or whether you're giving us a lesson on understanding your love languages or your financial budgets or triggers, you've always brought joy. It's something that I love about you, Ken, and something that I think reaches other people. So
well,
keep that up, man. Hey, any last words as we're wrapping this conversation up for anybody out there struggling in active addiction or it may be in early recovery that just feels like, man, you're telling me I got to be sober for the rest of my life? Right? That's what I've been doing this for you. What would you say to that person? What kind of encouragement would you give them?
well, I like too that I'm just going to take that word you just used about being sober, because if you look in the dictionary talks about sobriety as, yes, one way is an absence of alcohol, but another is of the mind. And sometimes, and I would love to just start there. It's like, you know what? But stay in community, because this is a sad fact. But I do think if people can really address what it is that's triggering them to the substance, is really knowing what your core values are and talking to somebody about how we can implement, take what are your values, create action steps, or what are your goals, and then what are the daily action steps that we can do. But please always involve community. And remember, inside of each and every one of us, we were born for greatness. There's seeds of greatness. It's in our DNA. Brandon, you have a bracelet. I saw something on your bracelet. I think it says I am a champion, and I saw that. And we have one of our chapters in our book is "This is who I am," and I love that. It's been really helping even me. Who am I at my core? Now, granted, I got to fight the ugly thoughts that want to tell me otherwise. But that's why we need that good support system, as we're really speaking of who are we at our core. And again, whether counseling, therapy, do anything and everything to get somebody who can help get to the underlying issues. We have substance use disorder, but what's the underlying problem? What's the root cause? And this is what we want to get to. So really reach out for help getting to those root causes, because there are childhood traumas. There could be abandonment, could be the rejection, it could be who knows what, that has caused us to imprint on substances or even behavioral addictions. But we want to be detached from those negative things, just one thing at a time. So, but it's just that one step. It's just taking one step forward to reaching out to get that help. So
So one step. Don't focus on the rest of my life.
exactly.
Focus on what's right in front of you.
That's right. That's, yeah, because all of us, even me, I get overwhelmed with, I think of everything all of a sudden at once, but then I'm thinking, okay, here's a question. Sit down with your paper and pen. What's one next thing I can do? One next thing. And I do want to encourage writing or journaling. I liked what Zig Ziglar said. This was years, decades ago. A thought unrecorded is a thought often lost. And we were born to know. So, but when we have pen and paper, I think it's an act of gratitude to God that he wants to give us ideas. He wants to give us something to move forward into. But I think with pen and paper, okay, God, what's that one next thing? Okay, God, what's my why? I liked what, uh, uh, anyway, who was this one guy? He said the two most important days of our life are the day we were born and the day we learn why. And so, God, what is my why?
That
And
was me, dude. I said that.
Mark Twain. That's it. It's Mark Twain. You know,
That's my pen name.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So it's, I think we're all hungry for our why.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are in addiction, or, again, we've lost we don't know our why, so we lose our way. And we want to get what's our why? What's my why, God? And Brandon, it's like people like what you've been doing right now. It's bringing more up of my why, of what I see you doing. And so it's really like, really looking at people that kind of fit where we want to go and learn from them and see what they're doing. So,
Well, thank you. You've had many encouraging words, and none of them went lost. I'm super grateful for those encouraging words, but also for your friendship, and just the light that you've been to me and many others on their recovery journey. I hope that you consider me a victory because you did invest a lot of your time and some money into my life, gas
you are a
money.
victory.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I'm so that's just a super exciting, thing to be able to share with you at this point because you mean a lot to me, Ken. I want to remind the listeners before we hop off of here that my book, Step 4, A Journey Through My Addiction, is going to be releasing this fall. Please go check that out. We'll have pre-sale copies soon. And I just want to thank my guest, Ken Garber, for coming on the show. Such wisdom in so many of his words and just the loving, caring heart that he has. So we just want to say thank you, Ken, for being on the show.
Thank you, Brandon. And
Yep. So go like. Yep.
you're
Go
a huge
like.
victory.
Go ahead, Ken.
You're a huge victory. You are a
Thank
victory.
you. Thank you, brother. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends. And next interview, we'll have Jordan Darty. And stay tuned for more episodes from the miniseries. This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by my friend JB Davis at Performance Chrysler, Dodge Jeep Ram in Centerville. I know JB personally, and I can tell you he's the real deal. He's honest, he's dependable, and he's committed to treating people the right way. So if you're looking for a vehicle and you want to work with someone you can trust, call JB at 513-267-5225 or stop by Performance Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Centerville and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you.